difference between, one second, let me just take these questions first before going. Let's say fruits, that is pectins, or vegetables that you consume. Usually fiber is used as a substrate by these bacteria to produce certain chemicals in the body that can make changes even on a genetic level. So they enter your cells, your body cells, and they can affect your gene expression, which is the reason why you have these Starbucks and you have Cafe Coffee Day, Barista, all of these places. And it is regularly haunted by so many people. There will be not one coffee place that you will see empty because that much is the demand of caffeine. But with the increasing cases of, heart attacks that you see, it makes you wonder, is it the overconsumption of caffeine in the new generation that is causing that? Right? So now when it comes to caffeine, it is a stimulant, so it affects your brain and your heart. But 43% people, I'll give you statistics, about 43% people are intolerant to caffeine. And what does that mean is, आपके जो diet, as in the moment you consume any food, it breaks down, right? Caffeine breaks down into 3 parts. It is paraxanthine, theobromine, and theophylline. ठीक है, अब ये आपके liver में होता है. But paraxanthine, which is the major component of caffeine, it is left unchanged. यानी कि वो पूरी तरह से break down नहीं होता है, which is why that unchanged caffeine will have 3 times higher stimulating effect on your brain and your heart. So normally, if it is helping a person stay awake, to a person with intolerance, what it will cause? Insomnia. This person will not be able to sleep only. In cases where it helps in racing your heart, now you see a lot of trainers nowadays in fitness facilities and gyms. I mean, I have worked in it before, so I know. They will tell you, workout ke pehle you can just have a caffeine shot, black coffee ka shot. Aap pee ke aa jao. It's more than enough. You don't have to, take pre-workouts and such. Agar pre-workouts nahi hai, to caffeine will work. In that case, imagine if a person is caffeine intolerant and if the gene is already expressed, what's going to happen? What do you think will happen? It will have 3 times stimulation on the brain and on the heart. And during workout, what is a natural occurrence? Your heart rate anyway goes up because you're working out. Now imagine, because of caffeine, 3 times higher heart rate plus higher heart rate because of exercise. So there have been many cases where youngsters, this happened in Germany as well. One was aged 19 and the other was 16. Now they had caffeine more than required. So, these caffeine are so easily available nowadays, potent, like actual raw caffeine powder you get. So these two, they consume and they went for the workout. One of them collapsed on the treadmill and he was declared dead before he even reached the, the hospital. So now imagine how deadly can this substance be, which is so popular. So now when you understand the drawbacks of that, you need to understand if you are intolerant to it or no. And major sources of caffeine are what? Coffee, dark chocolate, energy drinks like Red Bull. You have pre-workouts nowadays that are easily available in all of your sports nutrition stores. They do not come with disclaimers also, right? So here you need to understand, if you start experiencing symptoms like racing heartbeat, headaches, jitters, after consumption of caffeine, for some people, it triggers anxiety as well. So that is also one gene that is affected because of caffeine. The gene that is involved is called CYP1A2. So CYP1A2 is the gene that is involved in caffeine consumption. But again, don't confuse caffeine intolerance with allergy. Some people are allergic as well. Symptoms are consistent with your allergic symptoms, like your rashes, hives, etc., which is not the same. Intolerance will affect you on your brain and your heart. Okay, and for some people, it does cause even excess peristaltic movement. It can give you diarrhea as well in some cases. Okay, so when it comes to intolerance, the gene is CYP1A2, the gene that is a fast metabolizer. If you carry this, it's heart protective. So that is AA, which is a fast metabolizer. So in this case, which is the unprotective allele, it is C. Okay, so if you have AC or CC, you are a slow metabolizer of caffeine and you're at a high risk. Okay, so the recommendations, of course, for a person who's a fast metabolizer is you can consume coffee or caffeine, but you need to understand that there is a limit to daily intake of caffeine, even on non-caffeine intolerance, right? Because 400 milligrams se upar agar ho jata hai, anyway you will end up with insomnia, because caffeine is a stimulant, a very potent one in that. So if it is heart protective, you can even consume 4 cups of coffee without any issue. But if you're caffeine intolerant, you need to maintain it to less than 150 milligrams of caffeine per day. Better yet, avoid caffeine. But if in case you are a person who has been used to, let's say, 8 cups of coffee, because there are people I have even experienced like 8 to 10 cups of coffee per day, and your doctors only, I have, when you visit hospitals, you will see their cafe, there will be a separate cafe, because doctors don't have a choice, they need to be awake, right? If they are going to stay awake for 48 hours, especially if they are in their residency. So in that case, the amount of caffeine you take, if it is, let's say, 8 to 10 per day, you need to reduce it drastically. If you are caffeine intolerant, you cannot reduce it from 10 to 5 and still think you'd be okay. No, you can at least take 2 cups in that case. But if you're a person with caffeine intolerance who's used to maybe 1 cup or 2 cups, it's best you avoid and switch over to non-caffeinated beverages. Okay, so this is what caffeine intolerance is about. So any questions so far? I get this question a lot. Green coffee bean extract or green tea extract, can we take them? So the truth is, green coffee bean extract will also have high caffeine. That's the reason why it helps in weight loss. When it comes to tea, it contains more of tannins, so it is not much in caffeine content. You can consume tea very safely. When it comes to green tea, again, it does contain some amount of caffeine, but consume it in lesser quantities, because people who consume a lot of green tea also end up with iron deficiency anemia, because it's a chelating agent. It tends to prevent absorption. Caffeine of any kind, do not consume it with food, because it will not let the absorption of certain nutrients happen in your body, even naturally, whether you are intolerant or not. Okay? So that wraps up caffeine. Now we have 4 chapters, which we will go through quickly because it is not anything technical. Okay, now nutrigenomic counseling. I'll just give you a gist of what exactly happens in nutrigenomic counseling. The goal is to obviously help people lead a better lifestyle based on targeted and personalized nutrition. However, nutrigenomic counseling encompasses a lot of other things as well. It not only takes care of your diet, but also your lifestyle, your exercise routine, your do's and don'ts, supplementation, and everything else. Okay, so it is tailor made as per your individual genetic type or your genotype. So it not only changes the diet, but also gives you changes in your overall energy levels. Your overall health issues can be managed. At the same time, you can prevent the issues that you are predisposed to. And in some cases, it also helps you in understanding the root cause of certain things that have gone undiagnosed. Okay. So the counseling protocol usually is, after the report comes, there is greeting and welcoming the client, giving a health form. So the health form includes all of the necessary details that will help the counselor counsel the client, because the health form will give you the current scenario. Genetic report से आपको नहीं पता चलेगा whether the person is a vegetarian, non-vegetarian, what he's eating, what he's not eating, what are the other health issues. It will not tell you anything. So health form, when does it come handy, or when it is useful? Because you are going to not only take care of the predispositions, but you also want to correlate the genetic report with their current health issues as well, right? And correct their current health scenario as well. So that's why health form becomes very important, so that you can set goals accordingly. Then counseling. So the counseling happens, it is for about an hour. Usually you are taken through the categories in the report. So there are 18 categories and 210 tests as of now. So the person is taken through all of them, wherever doubts necessary are of course cleared. It is correlated to the current health issue, so that the client understands it from a practical perspective. ऐसे नहीं कि आपको ये risk है, ये risk है, ये risk है. Because the person, what he's experiencing, that becomes also important. Maybe the person is not experiencing, but he's alarmed by seeing so many risks in his report. So there is always a way to make a person calm down and explain to them that these are risks. This is not something that's telling you you will end up with them. and there are ways to prevent it. So there is always a way to counsel them. Action plan is main and it is important, because although your genetic report will have certain research recommendations and explanations which will be given to you in the counseling as well, action plan is the one that combines the current health scenario with the genetic report and gives you a diet and lifestyle changes based on that. Okay, because in some cases, let's just say a person is having hypothyroidism. Now, on the basis of genetics, the person will be asked to eat this, don't eat that. Maybe on the basis of another genetics, they can have certain cruciferous vegetables, but on the basis of action plan, they cannot include that, right? So the counselor in the end is at the place of discretion what should be included, avoided by taking everything into consideration. And closing the session, of course, is summarizing the report and the action plan. And there is every year, as in for an entire year, you do have follow-ups or wellness help desk inquiries, where in the diet can be changed at the same time, certain doubts can be addressed. Because if let's just say the person starts following the action plan and it's not, and the person is not able to, or they have certain doubts later, so that can be taken up, discussed, changed, modulated and modified even later. Okay, so targeted nutrition and gene-based diet plan. So usually how exactly it is changed. Okay, so usually the steps in diet planning, some of them are the same that is there in the normal diet planning, where there is a goal setting on the basis of the weight, height, there's a BMI and BMR that is calculated, and the ratio of macro and micro in this case will depend on your genotype. It is not going to be only on the basis of your BMR and whatever you require as per your age, but it is going to be included on the basis of, if according to weight management you need a low carb, a high protein diet, it's going to be calculated on the basis of that. And then after that, micronutrient distribution is decided, because just like we decided, macronutrients alone cannot function in your body because they need micronutrients in order to release the ATP. After that, the meal planning is done. And then on the basis of whatever goals and health issues they have, the diet plan is made. Okay. So in the last two chapters, when we reach the final assignment, you will have a copy of action plan and the report. So there you will be able to see in depth how it is made and how it is divided. Okay, so at that time we will discuss how it is done. This is just giving you an overview of what is taken into consideration. So health data, when you saw the video initially, what was it talking about is, in order for us to understand how we can collate genotype of a population, there is something called big data. This entire chapter is just very short and it talks about different techniques that are used, but this is not anywhere close to being technical of any sort. So I just like you all to go through it because this is not to be taught. So summarizing it in short, big data infrastructure is nothing but a network where it processes, stores, and analyzes tons and tons of genetic data of a population of a particular area. So when that is done, it can either be used in researches. At the same time, it can be used in understanding the the degree of mutations or polymorphisms in a particular location or a particular community, and this can help us in progressing as human beings. It can help in finding solutions to a lot of diseases that haven't yet been found out. Okay, so big data is usually that. You have also seen it in the video where she spoke about big data and how it will help in understanding nutrigenomics, because it is a budding and an ever-evolving subject. Nutrition and genetics itself is a wide subject. Now imagine you bringing these two very huge fields together. So it is going to be a lot of research and studies to be done yet, because you have 25,000 genes and more in your body. You have 38 trillion cells in your body. Although the Human Genome Project has been able to collate a lot of data and give you, now we know what exactly genes do, but there is still a portion of your DNA that has been said to be, non-coding, but maybe it could do something else. So there's still a lot of studies underway in order to understand that. Okay, so big data and various ways of collating data helps. So now let's just summarize what is Velocity Genetics DNA testing program. So this program usually talks about different categories that could help you overall in understanding your genetics. Okay, like a GPS, it tells you what focus areas are there and where you don't have to worry about much. And in some cases, like I said, it helps you in detecting health issues that you only know through symptoms you're experiencing, but you've never got it diagnosed. So it is a combination of various fields. Nutritional genomics is, of course, your nutrition genome and your overall health and environment. Personal genomics basically talks about from the basis of the physiology, diseases. Okay, personal genomics also talks about personality traits. Okay, then you have sports or fitness genomics, especially for people who are athletes. And even if you're not athletes, even if you work out, you would definitely want to know what kind of exercise routine suits you, or what kind of activities will put you at a risk of injuries, or if you have risk of injuries. So this comes under sports and fitness genomics. Dermagenomics talks about your skin. Okay, pharmacogenomics, very important and very popular in our in Velocity, wherein medicines or drugs which are more efficient would be known to you. So you won't be taking certain medication for years and years and it's not helping you, it's not efficient. So even for doctors, it is helpful tool to understand what is a targeted therapy. So targeted nutrition and targeted drug therapy all comes under genomics. Wellness genomics is again to give you care through nutrition and exercise, and there are many categories under this. Overall, we have 18 categories. So these steps you all may already be aware of if you all have attended other webinars where a sample collection kit is delivered. You give your saliva sample and then it goes to the lab where a report is generated for you. Once the report reaches the nutrigenomic counselor, you're given a call from us wherein it is scheduled, your health details are collected, and you're given a counseling plus an action plan within a certain stipulated time after the counseling. Okay, and once you start following it, there will be certain follow-ups with which you would be able to benefit. Okay, so let's look at an overview of the categories we have. So you have nutrient deficiency risks that tell you about the predisposition of nutrient deficiencies, intolerances and allergies, which we just spoke of. There are certain others as well, which is not included in your syllabus, which is salt metabolism and peanut allergy, right? So all of these predispositions, then you have dermatology section that talks about your predisposition to skin related problems. And not just that, the trigger agents, let's just see for vitiligo, you have a risk, but also you have trigger in the form of deficiency of vitamin D and gluten in some cases. So even if you don't have a risk of developing vitiligo, if you have a trigger in this, you would know that you still need to avoid it, right? Then you have weight management, especially for people who have been sick and tired of trying to lose weight with different diets and different exercises. So this weight management and fitness category helps for such people as well. Okay, so under a fitness category, you also have adiponectin, which we just spoke of, right? Adipoq gene. Then you have ginger supplementation. So there are a lot of genes that are advantageous in nature that can help you have an upper hand over other people who don't carry your kind of genetics. So you get to know if you are advantageous enough to lose weight faster through shortcuts, which is written in your genetics. So PUFA, MUFA, snacking between meals, tendency of emotional eating, which could lead to overeating. So that's also included. Then you have diabetes. So we have 18 points in this, which also include diabetic complications. So you have thyroid health, which not only talks about your predisposition to hypothyroid, but it's also giving you an insight into the risk of autoimmune disorders of thyroid gland. If you've heard of Hashimoto's and Graves, Hashimoto's leads to hypo, Graves leads to hyper, but this is autoimmune disease of the thyroid gland. Okay, then you have cardiac health, which is very important, which not only includes parameters associated to your lipid profile, but also to homocysteine, atherosclerosis, heart attacks, left ventricular hypertrophy, and atrial fibrillation, which I spoke of, for people who have long-term hypertension, coronary artery disease, right? Then you have organ health, which is associated to all other organs, your liver, your uric acid, cataracts, age-related hearing loss, gallstone predisposition, IBS. Okay, so you also have chronic kidney disease, which talks about your kidney health. Inflammatory disease. So like I said, inflammation, if it's internal, it could be related to various other parts of your body. External, you know it's inflamed, so you treat it. Internally, skin allergies. It could show up as arthritis. It could show up as allergic rhinitis, asthma, pancreatitis, COPD. So all of this predisposition you can see under inflammatory diseases. The neurological health is a very long, I think it's the longest one we have in our this one. So it's 25 points. So you have things like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. Also, what can help you prevent and reverse it. You also have predisposition to migraines and what are the trigger agents for migraines as well. Okay, then you have sleep disorder, panic disorders. Restless leg syndrome is sleep disorder. Then septic shock. Now, septic shock, if you will agree with me, a lot of it is one of the complications of COVID as well, where there is sepsis. Okay, so the risk of septic shock also can be identified. Then you have pain sensitivity, vascular dementia, personality disorder. Okay, then you have eating disorders and addictions. There are 13 of them. So just because you show positive in addiction doesn't mean you're addicted. It only means you carry a gene that could render you addicted if you consume those substances or indulge, because it also depends largely on your dopamine, which is produced in the brain, which also could put you at a risk of depression. How can you manage depression, which is more important, which is given here as well. Okay, then gender specific risks based on what gender you belong to, only those tests are given. So it is 4 for women and 4 for men. Okay, which includes infertility, neural tube defect, etc. DNA damage and biological aging. Some people cannot tolerate tandoori food on a genetic level. They might end up with cancer or certain mutations if they are having a lot of tandoori meat. But if you're a vegetarian and you carry the gene, there's nothing to worry about because it's not triggered by any vegetarian tandoori food. Then you have lifespan and longevity, which can tell you what kind of gene you carry. If it's advantageous where you live to 90 years up, or it is a median age, which is 70 years. Then you have drug response. This comes under pharmacogenomics. Then you have fitness, which is the longest, sorry, neurological is the next longest because fitness is 27 and neurology is 25. So here you get to know what kind of activities will work for you, what kind of pre and post workout diet will work for you, if supplements are required or no, if you are at a risk of injuries and what you need to do to prevent injuries. Okay, so everything included under your fitness. And the last 2 categories is about your biological clock. Now, a lot of people, they are more active in the morning, some are active in the evening. So as per your biological clock, what is your metabolism? To what extent you need to limit carbohydrates? If you need to work out in the morning or in the evening, you get to know from circadian rhythm. And the last talks about your immunology or immunity. There's something called oxidative stress. Our body is used to producing it if we already have underlying issues or even as a result of normal metabolism. But there are external factors as well, like radiation, pollution, smoking, that could cause a oxidative stress production. So how do you negate them? How do you neutralize them as per your genetics? And how do you detoxify your system? So all of this is included under our categories. Okay, so that being said, we are done with this section right on time, actually 15 minutes past. So Stanza, would you like to close it? So thank you so much.
Yes, of course, Reena has been fantastic, covering a lot of chapters which you not been able to do it last week, and at the same time, covering almost every chapter of this section. So that concludes 3 sections of this entire course. So in the next 2 classes, we'll be covering another 12 chapters in the 4th section, and that's going to be on epigenetics. Now, amongst all the chapters, you will find that epigenetics is very, very relevant, very interesting, because you can actually relate what's happening on a day-to-day basis. And then the last class, we'll also be looking at the velocity genetics reports that we do in a very detailed manner, and then also how significant is the action plan and what actually goes in creating an action plan. There are so many information that we need to be taking care of before we making an action plan. So that's exactly what we'll be doing in the next the last class. So in the next 2 class, there's a lot that you will learn, which will put everything in perspective that you learned in the first 6 classes. So I request all of you to be there online to the classes, and ensure that you get the entire information in the right manner. And all those students who have not been able to log in for live classes for whatever reasons, you are expected to listen to the recording and then complete all your assignments of answering all the classes. So thanks, Rina, so much. And today we had Abhijit sharing. In the next 2 classes, we'll also ensure we'll give an opportunity for students to share their own personal experience. And we are tracking your progress online. So don't fake, answer all the questions, and ensure that you're getting value for the money that you have paid, for the time that you're spending here, and for the efforts that you are creating. So thanks so much. All your questions will be answered during the next 2 classes. And if there are any questions that you need to ask anytime during the week, please get back to me on the WhatsApp number, and that would be fine. So,
and sir, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I've been talking about the nutrigenomics to my friends who are majorly doctors wherever I go. So one question which is being asked is the authenticity of the report which we get.
Yeah.
So I just posed a question as to will the reports be same if done in through Vignet all across the world? Will the reports be same or?
Yeah. So firstly, it's a very interesting question. Probably require an elaborate answer, but let me just try to answer that in 2-3 sections. The first thing is, medical doctors are not geneticists, or they do not really have knowledge of genetics as a specialist. Okay. For example, suppose if I have an orthopedic issue, I would definitely won't go to a cardiologist. Okay, because cardiologists would say, look, I do understand orthopedics, but I'm not a specialist. So to get an approval or I would say, yeah, that's the right word. To get an approval from medical doctors may not be really a wise idea. I would rather encourage you to go to genetics experts. Okay, and there are not too many in the society right now. So that's the first point. Having said that, the genetic testing that is done at a very different platform. Just to explain that, in the mobile phones, you will have Android as one technology, you will have iPhone, iOS, another technology. So there are different technologies. So right now, the technology that's being dominating the world of genetics, especially in terms of profiling and screening, is called the global screening array, DSA. Okay. And this is dominated by a company called Illumina. Illumina is, if you could just search, provides the latest machines and the technology, and they set the benchmark as to what exactly are the research recommendations, and what are the, there's a lot of hardware that's involved in terms of the machines, in terms of the magnetic chips. And if you see in the TV shows, you will see, the veils of small tubes of the saliva sample go into a machine, and then there's a lot of extraction. So unlike a contrary popular perception that genetic testing means it's not a big supercomputer kind of a machines, but these are small diagnostic machines. So there are various stages. The first thing that happens is that the saliva that's collected in a saliva sample collection tube also has a preservative which preserves the DNA. Okay, so the moment it goes to the lab, the first task is to extract the DNA. So that in itself is 3, 4, 5 days. And after that, there is the raw data. From that raw data, there is a procedure that happens where they identify what the genetic data is or the mutations are. That's called the DNA yield. That takes its own time. And once that's done, then the bioinformatics team would sit together and then identify as to what are the risk factors. So there are very, very complex algorithms that have been written based on the genetic variants or the mutations that we have. And then there is a personal report that is generated, which is available to us. Now, in the report, you will see in the initial pages that it's written as to the technologies from USA, the bioinformatics is done under this technology, and the, I would say, the authenticity report, there is a certificate that comes. Okay. Now, all the labs which are doing this testing are NABL accredited by the ICMR of the government of India. So that's the authenticity. Now, having said that, what we do at Velocity Genetics is put together a comprehensive test of 200, 210 phenotypes. And the report that we present has been well appreciated in the industry, because there have been a lot of people who have been doing a kind of a research or, getting deep into the subject. So they have gone from multiple, organizations, companies and labs and everything, and they have come back to us and said, you're the best. Okay. So what we do in that report is that we not only add what a phenotype really signifies, what are the genes that we have tested, what's your risk factor, what are the symptoms if you had this deficiency, what are the research recommendations, and what are the diseases probably that you can get. So it's quite elaborate. Now, it's all theory right now, but when you do your own testing and then attend or go through a counseling through RENA, you'll put everything, and it's like, all that jigsaw puzzle coming together and saying, oh, it's so real, I can relate to it. So that's what RENA and everybody does. Because right now it's all theory. It's a very general approach, like the medicine. So this is exactly what we have. So it's absolutely authentic. Now, what can be a variant is your recommendations. Now, that whether RENA wants to give you a 2,500 calorie diet with XYZ ingredients or whatever, that's her expertise. So that need not necessarily be standard. But if you really use the same technology, and if you give the same saliva sample, your genetic yield would exactly be the same. So there won't be any change at all. So how you address that later definitely could be your own expertise. So that could be changing. Do I answer your question?
Yeah, sure. Actually, the reason I asked is because most of the doctor friends of mine, they have certain labs which they prefer to have the blood reports done from. Sure. And they don't believe the labs which are local labs. Therefore, the question when I started discussing about nutrigenomics to those people, they said that, well, who will be the people who will be doing the DNA test and how authentic will the reports be?
So I would partially subscribe to it. I won't buy it entirely, because this also has some undertones of the commercial arrangements with the labs. For example, if I go to you as a doctor, and if I've done certain diagnostic tests 3 months back, which probably still will hold valid, but you would choose to say that, look, I don't really believe in their reading, so why don't you really do it? Because you have a commercial arrangement. Absolutely. So it's a little bit of nexus that's there. I wouldn't say it's wrong, because probably you will have a better understanding and trust level with a lab that you're dealing with. So it's fair. But having said that, we really know how the health industry exists. If we can really talk about the nexus that's happening in the health industry right now, that's like, people are, or rather patients are being treated like objects. 60% of the surgeries in India have not been, I mean, they could have been avoided, because there are other ways through which, natural ways or simple ways or inexpensive ways. Just imagine I speak to a gynac who tells me, saying that if I don't recommend 20 cesarean C-section, I am not appreciated in the hospital. And they're questioning me by saying that, what are you doing? You can't be encouraging people. So you probably need to, I mean, just a very layman explanation is that you scare the pregnant lady by saying that, look, there's something wrong. And today it's not that, the mothers have children like 6 and 8 and 9 and 12. They have either 1 or maximum 2. So they don't really want to take a chance and rather pay up more money and then have C-section. So this is easier to identify. But if you really look at so many other surgeries that are being suggested, and no wonder there are doctors who have now come up out of this medical setup and then advocating people by saying that, there's a lot of chaos that's going on. It's highly commercialized. So that we cannot deny. My take is, having interacted with a lot of doctors, you need to really identify. See, if let's say my son or my daughter wants to become a doctor, the amount of money that goes, 5 years of your precious life, probably send people abroad. We've seen what happens in Ukraine. Yeah. A good number of students go to Ukraine and then get trained, because education there relatively is cheaper, apart, compared to a lot of other European countries like maybe UK or France, Germany, or maybe Canada or USA. So people get that tag of international qualification doctor. Nevertheless, they still need to be spending money out of their, from their nose. And they come, and then again, you don't really get to earn a lot of money in your first month. So they need to start, first of all, compensating the investment that they've done. and then make profit. So they start making actually profits almost after 8 or 9 months, 9 years.
Yeah.
Is the longest gestation period for any professional or a business person. So that's why today there are articles that I've read which says, do we really call healthcare industry? Is it really an industry?